Hello, I'm Sharon Tapper. I'm the Executive Director of the Music Managers Forum US. Thank you for joining us today. If you are new to the MMF-US, welcome. And if you've joined us before, welcome back. If you're not already familiar with us, here's a quick thumbnail sketch of who we are. The MMF-US was established in 1993. We are the leading trade association for artist managers and self-managed artists in the US. We are a registered 501c6 not-for-profit, and we rely on the support of our members and the generosity of our sponsors to provide our programming. If you're not already a member, please consider joining. You can do this very easily on our website at mmfus.com and just click the application button. We serve our community in several ways. The core of what we offer is education, networking, and advocacy. So through educational webinars like today's, we're able to support managers and artists providing continuous, relevant professional development within an ever-evolving music industry. And through advocacy, we're able to provide a collective voice to lobby to affect policy change for a fairer and more transparent music industry. We provide networking opportunities, both virtually in the form of webinars. Feel free to chat it up in the chat. And we also provide in-person events. So we did a mixer this week. We've got a mixer coming up in Los Angeles in November. If you want to stay informed of our events, you can follow us. You can sign up for our bi-weekly updates or quarterly newsletters on our website, or you can just follow our social media channels at MMF-US. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we are also part of the IMMF, which is the International Music Managers Forum, and that's part of a network of 65 MMFs around the world. So that connects us with Europe, Latin America, Asia, Australia, and Africa. So there's MMFs in all of those territories, and we connect with them all, and it enables us to connect with the artist managers globally, as well as the business opportunities that exist there. The reason we're here because the lovely Mark Fraser, who is our Sync ambassador and the founder and CEO of Sync Summit, said, hey, can we put this on? And when he explained what it was like, of course, this is something that all of our members and just community at large need to know. So we're really happy he's here, and he can walk us all through the importance of metadata and how you can use it to have a successful career in sync. Mark, if you can unmute.
And here I am.
Excellent.
Hello.
So the floor is yours.
Hi.
Take it away.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Sharon. And it is such a pleasure to have a partnership with you and the MMF, and really appreciate everything that you all do. Metadata is one of the most important things that we need to get right when we are presenting our music, not just for Sync, but to anyone. To present it on streaming networks, to put it on social media, to make it available so that different sync-related and non-sync related search engines and AI platforms will list your music properly. And the reason that we obsess about metadata is simply because in a digital world, the information that surrounds your music, and that's really what metadata is. Metadata is the data about, in this case, data. And in this case, the data is your music. So along with making the greatest music that you can, which is, I'd say, the most important thing for us in Sync, one of the other most important things for us in Sync is being able to figure out how to pay you and how to find your music. And that's really where metadata comes in. And before I get started with the presentation, if you asked me 10 years ago about metadata, I would say Well, I guess it's sort of important, but we didn't really think about it because everything was basically done with paper or by sending spreadsheets out. It's amazing to think in only 10 years, this has changed so drastically, where everything that we do, for the most part, is digitized, it's streaming, it's online. And that means sharing music, evaluating music, selecting music, and curating music for ads, for TV, for film, for games, for interactive platforms. And in all of that sharing, specific to sync, we need to have good metadata. It shows that you have a level of professionalism in general. And in addition to that, it also makes it easier for us on a practical level to find how to contact you, to find your music, whether it's on a hard drive or whether it's on a streaming network or whether it is on a platform like Disco. So that's why it's so important. Without good metadata, you don't look professional, and we can't find you, and we can't pay you, and your music can't get found by search engines and AI, as well as music supervisors and other people that may be looking to get in touch with you, like bookers, booking agents or publishers, A&R people, potential managers, if you're self-managed. And if you're a manager, I think you understand the importance of all of the things that metadata can do for your artist. So with that said, that's sort of like that's my basic introduction. And we're going to get into some of the basics that we've put into our metadata style guide. And I want to start off by saying that the tips and techniques I'm going to give you are basically ones that have been drawn from a consensus of me and other people, sync agents and music supervisors that I collaborate with and work with in the industry. So these are the things that we've settled on as the basic, important, and essential and correct metadata set for you to be successful in populating all of the fields of your MP3's metadata correctly. We'll also talk about some of the platforms that we use. The last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to pull up the presentation, is that this metadata set is not the full range of metadata. We're only, because that would be probably like, we actually did a 6-week course on it a couple of years ago. That's how much time it takes to get into all the different types of metadata. So all that we're going to talk about now is basically the metadata that you need for your songs to be correctly populated for sync primarily, but also for search engines and for AI to be able to find and be able to pay. So with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing is, the reason why we created this guide and why we're doing this presentation was that we wanted to give you an idea of how you actually take the idea of, oh, my metadata is really important and I need to get it done, to actually executing on it and getting it done in an organized, clear-cut, and effective manner. So basically, what we're talking about here is all of the different fields and the different things that need to be in those fields within your MP3s and also AIFF files. You'll notice that I didn't include WAV files here because WAV files, they really, like, some people will say to me, well, Mark, they do allow you to enter metadata, but effectively the metadata set you can put into a WAV file is very small. And usually we don't put metadata into those files. In addition to that, the reason that we emphasize MP3s is because MP3s are what we commonly send to each other when we are when we're responding to briefs, if we're a music owner, or as a music supervisor, people are going to send to their teams, the editor, the director, the creative director, the brand manager, whoever it is in whatever type of project. They're going to send them MP3s to stream and to listen to. It's usually only after we've made our choices in terms of what songs we're actually going to use, where you go to phase two and you say, okay, now I need a lossless digital file. Now I'm going to need an AIFF or a WAV. And most people still ask for WAVs. When we're talking about entering metadata, we'll be talking about MP3s because that's what we send to each other and what we build our playlists from. With that said, emphasizing it again, metadata is crucial to your success in sync in the music industry overall, because your music is much easier to find by sync decision makers. And I say sync decision makers because music supervisors are only one group of people. There's also editors who are an important decision maker group. There are creative directors at ad agencies. There are directors and producers and showrunners. All of these people will be looking for your music. In addition, there's AI and search engines, as I said before, AI tools like Ames.api and also Museo, but there are many other resources that are looking to categorize music and to output music when people are making requests for it. So the better your information, the better that the results are going to be in terms of your music showing up when somebody's looking for something that your music could work with. Okay, and then there's the other point. I talked about this, but I'll go into it again quickly, just to give you a little bit of an idea of its importance. When your metadata is incorrect or incomplete, most music supervisors will not even listen to your music these days, as they've lost confidence in your level of professionalism. And that's the minor point. The major point is that music supervisors are moving very quickly through things. And if they see that there isn't any metadata, then they know, oh gosh, now I'm going to have to get in touch with this person in order to figure out who I'm going to pay. And they don't even have a way to get in touch with them because their email bounced back and I don't have a phone number. So I'm just going to have to move on from this song. And that's the reality of it. So a lot of music supervisors, if they see that there's lots of missing metadata, they're just going to move on to the next song. And that honestly, that sucks because your song could be perfect. And having the right metadata can make all the difference for you in that regard. But in addition to that, we want to get the best level of metadata too. So we'll talk about best practices in the descriptive tagging. With all of that said, I'm going to take you through things step by step. How does metadata relate to ISRC? Well, for the purposes of sync, we don't care about ISRC. ISRC is something that you can, in the bigger metadata set, you need to know your ISRC numbers, and you need to put them in for streaming networks. But for the purposes of sync, we honestly don't care because it doesn't impact what we do in terms of payouts and in terms of ownership vetting. It is correct that AIFF files can play anywhere that a WAV file can play. That is true. The best thing to do is to really be sort of, I love using this term, to be customer focused, right? Have a WAV file ready. Don't even have that conversation with somebody. If they want a WAV file, just send them a WAV file. If they'll take an AIFF file, send them an AIFF file. I just make sure I've got everything ready whenever I'm asked for it. Next thing, I wanted to talk a little bit about file management platforms before I get into the step-by-step of metadata. As we live in a digital world, we've got a lot of great platforms that are out there. Disco.ac, Box.com, Dropbox are 3 examples. There's one called RightsBridge that's been put together by a great group of people in France that I think they're trying to do some excellent work as well. And all of these platforms are really essential for us. Now, within some of these platforms, there are metadata entry tools that I know many of us use. And those metadata entry tools are fine within the environment of that particular piece of software. The fact of the matter is, basically, when you take your MP3s out of Disco, a lot of the time the metadata comes out different, and it either gets truncated or it's incomplete. And What I found is that I don't generally put my metadata in using Disco. I will send Disco music where I've already put the metadata in. And then if I want to add more descriptive tags or information that's Disco specific, I will do so within their environment. And the reason that I do this, not in Disco or other MP3 editors, but I use Apple Music because it makes you conform to all of the default parameters of an MP3 storage potential and storage limits. So for example, in the comments section, you can have 255 characters. Well, that's all you can put in Apple Music. If you go to Disco, you have unlimited characters you can put in. And when you take it out of Disco, then what happens is that after the 255 character limit, things get truncated. So all that information is gone. So what I like to do is I like to create have my metadata stored locally on a spreadsheet. Then I take that information from that spreadsheet and use it to populate my MP3. And then from there, I will upload that to Disco or to whatever other platform that I'm using. Last point on this. The reason why this is important to do is that the fact is that there's probably 40 to 50% that don't use it on a regular basis. And there are others who just don't use it at all. And they don't need to, they don't want to, and they're just going to stay with their old methods, which could be, I mean, it could be anything. It could just be like, send me a download link. That's something that you have to be prepared for. And if you subscribe to Disco, will all of your data stay on there if your subscription expires, or is it safer to use Dropbox and avoid any of your data expiring, being taken off the platform? Yeah, that's a really good question. And I can't tell you what happens on Disco after if you decide to allow your subscription to expire. I imagine if your subscription expires on Disco, then your access is shut off. So you can't even access your music. So if your data was there, your data is not going to be there because your music's not going to be there. So as long as you're a member of Disco, whatever you put on there is going to stay on there. But you should probably have another place, whether it's a local hard drive or whether it's Dropbox or Box.com or somewhere else, that you store all of your music. So here are the tools that you're going to need to get started to do metadata the way that I do it. You need to have a central and locally stored record of your metadata, which should be a spreadsheet. A program like Microsoft Excel, which is what I keep everything in. That's what I prefer. You can use Numbers as well, though I don't know that many people that use Numbers, which is an Apple platform. Now, metadata editing software. Again, I recommend that everybody uses Apple Music for this because it's free and everyone has access to it. But I also want to recognize that there are other editors out there like MusicBrainz Picard, Tigo Tags Scanner, Metatogger, but for the purposes of this guide, we're going to go with Apple Music. Last thing is, I want to talk about two websites here that can help you to confirm and to find elements of metadata if you need to. One, which I think some of you may know about, is called SongView. And SongView is something that was created by ASCAP and BMI, and it's an amazing resource. And I found out not that many people know about it. At least that's what I've been led to believe. And that's kind of surprising because it's a great resource. Basically, if you're having trouble, and this really goes out to, if you're an artist, you shouldn't have to go to SongView. So you should know your publishers and your writers. But as a manager, as a sync agent, as a label or a publisher, you may need to find information about track, and SongView is really helpful in finding that information because it has a database of all the songs that are in ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, as well as a lot of foreign publishers as well. So if you're getting stumped on who's writer number 6 of a particular, Destiny's Child song that you did a cover of, SongView will help you to find who those writers were. If you want help creating descriptive tagging, there's some AI tools out there. Museo is one that I'll highlight right now. There's also AIMS API that does amazing work, and that's AIMS.API. That will also help you to find tagging for your tracks. And it does that by basically listening, quote unquote, the AI listens to the song and then finds like similar songs and then outputs descriptions based on that. So that can help you to fine tune your descriptive tagging. Okay, now we're going to go through my process. The first thing is creating a metadata spreadsheet. And I have actually made this simple for you because if you have this presentation, I've linked to the spreadsheet template that I've created for everybody. And you'll be able to use that for the purposes of what you're doing, in this first step. What I have here, and I want to emphasize this, is the metadata set that I need for my purposes of inputting metadata that is important for music licensing and for finding music that is for music licensing. But a lot of these fields are also relevant for putting songs on a DSP. There are some other fields that are omitted here that you would need for that, and that would probably be a subsequent conversation that we could have offline where I can talk about some of that information. But basically, this is going to give you all the information that you need in order to have everything right for sync and also for search engines and AI. So basically, this is all pretty straightforward. Song title, artist, album artist, composer, and the associated PRO. The grouping, which is a sort of a vestige from when MP3s were created. It really is publishers, even though it says grouping. Then the genre, the release year, BPM, contact email, contact phone. Is it one stop or easy, clear, case by case? What's the song, vocal, and instrumental elements? What's the descriptive tags? Does it sound like something similar? And then artwork file, and then for lyrics, either a file or just cutting and pasting the lyrics there. That's the template that's attached to this presentation. All right, so now we are going to get into the basics here. Okay, so you can see here an example of a song that I represent as a sync agent. It's from a Japanese group. Well, it's one guy, but he calls himself Mondo Grosso in this. And the name of the song is Labyrinth. So what we have here is all of the metadata fields from our spreadsheet that have all been entered into here, and they've been entered in correctly. And we're going to go through each one of them and go through the reasons why and how we do it. So we've gone into Apple Music. We've clicked on Get Info, which is how you bring up the metadata screen within Apple Music. And now that's where we are. So we have the different parameters in the metadata. And each one of these you can think of as a little container. So title, artist, album artist if needed, composer or composers, grouping, which is publishers, genre, year of release, beats per minute, a comment section, artwork, and lyrics. Those are the most basic things that we have to have. And we'll also look at track, disc number, and compilation a little bit later. But when you have all of these areas filled in correctly, you've got your metadata ready to go. So what are we going to do first? Okay, entering your metadata using Apple Music. Here's the steps. Find the MP3 in your hard drive or your cloud-based storage platform. Download it if it's on a cloud-based storage platform, and then open it up in Apple Music. On a Mac, find the track, then click on the three dots on the left of the track. On a PC, you'll select the song, then click edit. This will bring you to a drop-down menu. You'll see the option Get Info on a Mac or Song Info on a PC. Click Get Info or Song Info, and this metadata entry area will appear. And here's an example of the metadata window again for you to look at. Now, let's talk about how we start to fill this out. Okay, this part should be really simple. Enter the information as you have it. The title of the song, pretty self-explanatory. The artist goes into the artist field. This is Mondo Grosso featuring the Hikari Matsushima, and she is the singer on this track. So that's why you would put featuring. If it's just a band, you just put the band name or the artist name. Very self-explanatory. Album. If and only if this track is part of an album, put the album name here. If there's no album for the track, you just leave the field blank. Here, this is Labyrinth EP, and then album artist, if and only if this track is part of an album, you list the artist here. It's okay to repeat the artist name used in the artist field if it's relevant. So Mondo Grosso is the album artist, and that is the only info that should be in these fields. Sometimes I find that people want to put more information into these fields. It doesn't need, you don't need to put in any more information in there. Just those pieces of information. Okay, before I get to the next step, let's see here. Does having an admin publisher like Songtrust that is non-exclusive affect clearing at all? Would you still put in one stop if they don't own your publishing or just act as an admin? You know, it's a really good question, Ty. I mean, my feeling is, and I've talked to Songtrust about this, and they say that we don't really have any impact on any syncs that people do. They represent themselves. I mean, my feeling is anything that I cannot 100% make the decision on myself, I put in as easy clear, because I don't want to have any ambiguity as a sync agent. That's what I do. So I don't know if I would put a one stop there. My advice to you is to talk to somebody at Soundtrust and get them to give you an answer one way or the other as to what they feel comfortable with you doing. Is my music private in Apple? Yeah, just you, unless you, and Angelina, if you upload your music to Apple's, music service, then they're going to have all of your metadata. Otherwise, they won't. So all of this information that you have will be local on your hard drive. And then if you put it on Disco, or if you send it to, say, Gary Palomar, a music supervisor, then he'll have it, or it'll be on the Disco platform. So doing all of this within Apple Music doesn't share it with Apple itself. It's just using the platform. Now, entering your composer info. Here's where the rubber starts to hit the road, so to speak. The composer field should only be filled with the name of the songwriters as registered with their performance rights organization, and the name of their pro in parentheses as shown in the screenshot to the right. Without this info, we can't pay you royalties. So that's the basic reason why you got to have a PRO. More than any reason that matters to me is that you get paid. Okay, so the right way to do it is you put in the name of the writers, the writer's registered name first, and then their PRO in parentheses. If there are additional songwriters, you make a space, you don't put in commas, you put in the second songwriter with their PRO, and so on and so on. If if you have 12 songwriters in there, you do this, you just replace the names and the PROs. And as I said here, don't use commas, colons, or any other punctuation other than what's shown here with the parentheses. You don't need it. Don't click show composer on all views. It's not necessary. And there should be no other information here. And I'm emphasizing this because I've seen a lot of things that people have been told in terms of putting in, putting in information, 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 putting in information percentages of ownership, or if something's one stop. No, this is not the right area for that. There's another area for that, and that's the comments section. What should be here is super clean, just writer and PRO. Okay, and next, grouping. I hate this name. I hate this name because it should just say publisher. It should say publisher information, but MP3s were created, I think, in 1993. So the world that we live in 30 years later is very different. And they put this in as grouping. But what it means for us is where you put your publisher and your publisher PRO. Now, what you need to put in here is you put in the name and PRO of the publisher in the same order as the writers. But basically what we do is we have the first writer and also the first writer's publishing, and then the second writer, and then the second writer's publishing, and so on and so on. And again, the PROs for each of the publishers, because each publisher has a PRO. Now, I want to say something about being self-published. If you do not have a publishing company that you've assigned your rights to, your publishing rights to, and you're self-published, you just put in your name, or if a writer is self-published, you put in the writer's name, and then in parentheses, their PRO in the grouping section. And basically, the bottom line to this is that if you don't have a publisher, we still want to make sure that you're going to get paid for your publishing rights, and this is how we do it. Okay, if we release under a stage name, is that also the name we enter in the writer area? The name is registered with my PRO and it has its own IPI. Well, if it's registered with your PRO, and I would tend to say, yeah, as long as it's registered with your PRO, you should be in fine shape. Okay, so now we get to one that's fairly simple, which is genre information. Now, one thing I want to say about genre is that I like to see this area clean. I don't like to see it with like 15 different genres. I mean, literally, I have been sent metadata where people put in lots of different genres because they don't want to like leave themselves short. It's like, well, if I put in dance house and then rockabilly and then modern classical, then I'll get picked up in different areas. But really, that can backfire. So you got to pick a lane, and you got to pick the lane that works the most for the piece of music. And that's why I suggest to people you do one like this with a slash and a like dance house. That's what we put in for this one, because that's what the track matches closely to. So my approach is always to pick one standard genre, or like the example to the right, a genre with a subgenre, and leave it at that. You don't want to put yourself in a bad situation by having a genre description that's outside of the genre of the music. These things seem obvious, but I see them come up when I get music. So I just need to talk through that. Now, when you enter your music genre, when you're using Apple Music, some genres will come up if they're common as a part of a drop-down menu. And if they don't come up, you can go ahead and create a genre or put in a genre. Like, you want to pick a genre that people know, because you have to think, when I put in the genre, this is a search parameter. And every single thing that you put into your metadata is a search parameter. So you want to put in search parameters that people are actually going to look for. That's why I put in dance house for this track. I didn't put in J-pop or J-tech or J-electro, which, are subgenres that are out there. I put in something that it matches, that is ubiquitous, and that people actually use as a search term. Use a general genre that most people will know and understand, Americana, versus a term like lumbercore. And it's important to get right, because it really is a key search term for all of us. Like when we're doing searches, this is one of the first things that we think of. Is like, oh, what kind of genre are we looking for? What is the feel of that sound? What is like that? Like basically, you'll put in something that's like dance music, heavy synth, female vocal, anthemic building. that'll be the search term. And then you'll see what comes out of it. Well, if your music actually fits within the search parameter I just gave, the better your metadata reflects that, the better a chance that I am going to be able to find your music when I make that search. If you're a self-publisher and set up a publisher name, do you have to set up a separate bank account in order to get paid, or can you have the payout sent to your writer bank account? I would say you could get the payouts sent to your writer bank account, but if you've actually set up a separate entity in a company, I mean, you should have a corporate account. I mean, it's just better for tax purposes. But again, that's not really the subject of this conversation. And I would say that you should talk to a banker or an accountant about that one. And singer-songwriter imply acoustic, or does it imply other writers who will sing their tunes? It's funny. It's like when I hear singer-songwriter, I think of like John Denver. It's like something like that, or Joni Mitchell. Like that kind of person. So not necessarily acoustic, but it does put me in a different area. Like I guess Americana is sort of in that area as well. So I wouldn't say acoustic, but somebody who basically does most of their stuff themselves. Let's talk about year of the release. I want to make this super simple. We want to and need to know the year that a track was released. Don't leave this blank. If the track is unreleased, you can either put in unreleased you put it in the comments section, and you just leave the year of release blank. That's the only time that you do that. Now, some people will say, well, I always leave the year of release blank, and then the music supervisor isn't going to be influenced by the year of release as to the sound of the music. And to that, I say, don't do that. And the reason why is that I am sort of selling myself short by doing that more than I'm helping myself. Because if a music supervisor is working on an ad that has a feeling of the early 90s, if your track was made in the early 90s, it'll come up in their search. And because one of the other parameters they're going to put in, obviously, if they're doing a piece that is a nostalgia piece for an ad or TV or film, they're going to start using a year as one of their search parameters. That's why that's important to put in there. So always have the year your release there. And the other thing I'll say is that, if you have a song from, say, the year 2000 that sounds really current, or that sounds like something from the 80s, I say still put the year of release in there. And then in the comments section, you can put in something like 80s, 90s, 00s. So let's talk about what I call the appendixes. So track, disc number, and compilation. These fields have diminished in 1991. I said 1993, but yes, it's been 32 years since the birth of the MP3. So some of these fields are a little different than they should be. Track number, why not? If it is a specific track of an album or an EP, why not put it there? Otherwise, leave it blank. Disc number, if it's part of a 4-disc set, I guess put it in there, but I mean, I think you can leave that one alone. And then compilation, this is actually a search term. This is actually one that I would click if it's a compilation of songs of various artists. Okay, so how do we find the beats per minute of the track? This is really important. If it's a track that you've made recently, you can get it directly from your DAW, and that's the best way to get it. So you just get that BPM and you enter it into the BPM section. So what I do is I use a website that looks like it was made in 1993 called all8.com. And I put the link in here, all8.com/tools/bpm.htm. And if you click that link from the presentation when I give it to you, you can just manually click along with the beat for about a minute, and you can get a accurate average BPM. The things to remember here, there's a couple of important things. When you're entering the BPM, make sure that you enter the average BPM, not the highs and lows of the track's BPM. You can put further details in the comments section if you need to. Now, final thing is I want to talk about BPM versus tempo here. Sometimes songs with a lower BPM can be perceived as being mid-tempo, and songs with a higher BPM can be perceived as feeling mid-tempo or even low tempo. That's due to other elements like the feeling of the mood of the music, the vocalist stylings, or the instrumentation. There's no hard and fast rule for this, but it happens a lot of the time that you're going to have a BPM, but it's going to feel faster or feel slower. And you can put that into the comments section. So really, when we're talking about BPM versus tempo, BPM is the exact beats per minute. The tempo is like, does it feel driving? Does it feel kind of slow? Does it feel dreamy? Like these sorts of things will influence how the tempo feels. But the BPM is a scientific thing. No, releasing music doesn't cause any issues with licensing. I mean, some people will ask for unreleased tracks only, but for the vast majority of licenses, we don't care. In fact, it's probably an advantage that it's out there. But we really don't care. That's the bottom line. If you work for hire artists doesn't want to be noted, can you leave the artist field blank? Okay, that's interesting. I mean, if you worked with a work for hire artist, you certainly don't need to put their name into anything. I mean, I would just out of the sake of respect, but probably what I would do is I would say, hey, Taylor, let's come up with a pseudonym for you. And then that pseudonym would just be for her singing credit. And it wouldn't actually be for anything that matters from a payout point of view. Back to the presentation. We're getting into the home stretch now. Okay, now we're going to start to talk about the comments section. This is one of the most important parts of your metadata, and it's divided into basic points, and these are in order and put here on purpose. So you have contact information, phone, and email. I say phone and email because sometimes email addresses bounce back. And sometimes phone numbers go out of service. But if you're doing your metadata correctly, both of those are going to be current. But some people will want to call you if there's an urgency thing, as well as email you. So you should have that contact information there, and that should be the first thing in your metadata. Then let's put clearance difficulty out there, so we know if it's a one-stop or if it's easy clear. That's super important to us. So then we'll know if it's one stop, then we just need to go to you to clear everything. If it's easy clear, then what that implies is, yeah, I can clear this quickly in most cases, unless there's a problem with the money, basically. But what that means is, like, for me, if I'm working with a company in Korea and they have a big catalog and somebody asks me I work with YG, so let's use YG as an example. A music supervisor comes to me to license a Blackpink song. I'm not going to be able to say yes to the opportunity immediately, but I can turn around and answer within 36 hours, which means then what happens next is I go and I speak to my clients and I tell my client, look, this is a really good deal for the group and for us. We should go for it. 99 times out of 100, they're going to say, okay, we respect what you have to say, Mark, just make it happen. I go back to the music supervisor and I say, okay, send me paperwork, let's get it done. So that's what easy clear means in my mind, is that I can confidently say to the music supervisor, unless there's a problem with the money or the actual license, the usage, meaning like if there was like a violent usage and the artist didn't like it, or the label that I work with didn't like it, we're going to be able to turn it around quickly. If you can say that confidently, that's an easy clear. Even if you can't guarantee easy clear one stop, that's not a deal breaker. And I need to emphasize that, because I'm going to say this because it's the honest to God truth. Lots of music supervisors will go out there and they will use one stop like it's the word I. They will constantly say one stop. everybody wants one stop because it makes our lives easier. So yeah, one stop is really important. And easy clear, well, it's going to be really important too that you can say with confidence, oh yeah, I can get this cleared quickly unless there's a problem with the money or the particular usage. If your song is not one stop or easy clear, that doesn't mean that it's not going to get licensed. You know, things like samples are not necessarily a deal breaker. People will listen to music as music supervisors or as directors or creative people, and they will make their own decision. It's not a deal breaker. It certainly does make the music supervisor have to jump through more hoops. And also, if something isn't one stop or easy clear, then we're going to say, okay, so what is the complication? You know, is the complication that there's a sample? Is the complication that there's an estate that you have to go back to every time that takes a long time? Like, what is the exact complication that is keeping this from being a one stop or an easy clear? So the more information that we know up front, the better off that we're going to feel. Then the other thing I'll say about easy clear is that I brought up two things really quickly. One was the money and the particular usage. Well, those things should not stop me from being easy clear in the first place, because I, as an agent in this role, should be able to use my discretion to say, I represent the music of this squeaky clean 3-woman pop band. And I'm being asked to license their music to be used in a scene where basically everybody's getting shot up with machine guns. No, I don't even have to bring this to my client. I'm pretty sure that they're going to say no. So that's part of my job, is to know, okay, this is not an easy clear. So I won't even bring that to my client. And then the other thing is, there was a situation where an artist that I deal with who has had a top 10 like iconic song in the 80s was being asked to clear the song for a very low amount of money. Again, I did the same thing. I basically said, look, I can't even really bring this as a serious offer to my client. I'll tell them about it, but you know, they're not going to look kindly on the amount of money. Now, the next thing that should be there after contact information, clearance difficulty, is descriptors of talent and instrumentation. What's the main vocal element, an instrumental element? Terms like female vocals, sax solo, etc. should be entered as relevant. And then descriptions of the mood, feel, and vibe. With the 255 character limit, as I said before, you need to put in as much relevant information as possible and put it in order from most important to less important. I just want to emphasize a couple of things here about the character limit. Some file management systems, i.e. Disco, allow you to enter more characters than the standard 255, which seems like a good thing in their environment. And then when your MP3 leaves, there's a downside because all of the characters beyond that limit are truncated and lost. We need to make sure the 255 characters are used in the most efficient way possible. No punctuation. Okay, so with all of that said, let's dissect my comment section for this track. You put in your contact information. That's all. No company, no contact name. We don't care about that right now. We're going to learn your name later if we reach out to you. We don't need that information. In this case, just give us a way to get in touch with you. We'll learn all about you later, I promise you, if we're going to move forward. Next, put in the one stop or easy clear. That's got to be the next thing there. By putting all of this forward, it never gets lost. Even if you've done this all in Disco, God forbid, all that information is going to stay with it when it leaves Disco. There's my definition of one stop and easy clear. I'm not going to repeat them. If it's neither one stop or easy clear, just leave that info out. If we're interested in the track, we'll talk to you about it. And if there are samples in the track, you should put in contained samples. If one of your writing partners is with a major label's publishing wing, should you automatically avoid? Yes, you should automatically avoid saying easy clear. You know, because we're going to know it's not easy clear, Pamela. You know, if I look at this as a music supervisor and I see, oh, Pamela Lippert and Beyonce Knowles. Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to have to get in touch with Sony. Yeah. Bottom line is, if they're attached to a major label, By default, that's not an easy clear because major labels have their own criterias and they have their own ways of going about things. And this is not disparaging major publishers in the least, because they are great and have some great people working at them who I work with and I respect, but they will have a different process. Oh, yeah, this is a good question, Elijah. Should you try keeping the balance in the RIYL section between known artists or obscure artists and less known? Well, I mean, it's like I'd rather go for the billboard approach than the pitchfork approach, and what I mean by that is that, a lot of music supervisors consider themselves musicologists to some degree. I mean, I certainly consider myself having a wide knowledge of music, and I think all of us do. But if you go on the recommended, if you like, path with artists that are well known, you'll probably serve yourself better than more obscure artists. That's my feeling. The music supervisors use Spotify as opposed to Apple Music. We use everything. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, random website, title, whatever it takes. All that I'm saying is that for what we're doing here, for the data entry, you can use this piece of software for the metadata entry. You don't, whatever you do with the MP3 next goes anywhere. Why all this hype about disco if Apple seems to be the better way to go? Okay, well, disco is not a metadata platform, and Apple Music is not a metadata platform either. But the difference is that disco is a online service that has been built by music supervisors and technologists for the purposes of music supervisors finding and sharing music, and for artists and people that work with artists to create playlists and to send playlists out to decision makers in the industry. As part of what they do as a platform, they built lots of little tools into it. And some of these tools are better than others. And I don't want to start digging deep into disco, but in general, I think disco is a good platform. But when you're in the disco world, it's like being in, somebody's restaurant. Once you're in their restaurant, you're in their bubble. And once you're in disco, you're in disco's bubble. What disco does with metadata and what disco does with other parameters of their service work within their environment. But their environment is not, to use this analogy, the only restaurant in the world. You have to be ready for your music to go to any place in the world. And that's why I'm saying that for the purposes of entering your metadata and saving it, you should use Apple Music as your data entry platform. Song elements and tempo. Okay. Enter some of the main song elements. Is there a female vocal? Enter that here. Is there a sax solo? Enter it here. Is there a chorus? Enter it here. You get the idea. The main elements of the song that matter. Now enter the tempo. Now, how does this song feel in terms of the vocals, instrumentation, and force? As we said earlier, BPI is not always a good guide for tempo, but a starting point. So use your best judgment here. I always say this to people, that you do know your music. So use your best judgment. Also, feel free to ask a few other people. It's always great to get another person's opinion. You may not agree with it. You may not think it's relevant, but it's not a bad idea. The thing is, just make sure you don't overload this section, because you'll need the rest of the characters for your descriptive tags. Descriptive tagging. Everything you enter in your metadata is a potential search term. I think you all have grokked this by now, that someone looking to license your music could use to find your music. So this goes back to what I said about genre. Use terms that are not too arcane and are terms that people would use in the music industry and in real life. Here's an example with a few key parameters. Feeling. Use terms to describe music based on common search terms like dance, electronic, dreamy, anthemic. Think about your music and think about some basic terms. And if you're really stuck, like I said before, ask a friend or try using an AI-based tool like Museo or Ames.api. But here we have Japanese vocals, J-pop, dance, electronic, swelling, anthemic, dreamy, building, synth, piano. And when I use synth there, I didn't use it as a main point. It was like a sound, the sound of the synth, piano sound, driving melodic, and then RIYL, Cascade, Dead Mouse, and then Tanishi Ozawa, who is also known, by a lot of people just by his name as a producer. So that's the recommended if you like, and those are all the parameters there. But first the feeling, and then subgenre, language, RIYL. This is where you can put this information. And that's what I put here. Terms like Japanese, J-pop, dance, electronic, swelling, anthemic, dreamy, build, synth, piano, driving, melodic. And then we get to the recommended if you like, along with the names of any known artists. And that gets back to the question earlier. It should be known artists, ones that most people know. I'm sure I could have put down other references than Cascade and Dead Mouse, but I guarantee you, Cascade and Dead Mouse are search terms. If I use a more sort of obscure artist, I'm not going to come up with a name right now, but if I use a more obscure artist, they're not going to be searched for as much. Your descriptive tagging should be revised and refined on an ongoing basis. With that said, if you do this one basic detailing the right way and you put in the right descriptive tags, you could leave it alone. Getting this right the first time is the biggest sort of challenge you'll have. Once you have that in there, it will drive the potential findability of the track. Next, we're almost done here. Artwork is important. It's branding, it's expression. I tell everybody they should have some artwork. Their artwork should be something that is expressive, and you should also add, this example doesn't have it, but it's not my fault. It's the artist. This should have a simple name of the track and the artist name somewhere in the artwork. And then if you're a sync agent or publisher or a management company, I would consider using your company's logo and name as a standardized artwork for all the tracks that you send out to people in the industry. That way they'll see it, they'll know, oh, that comes from Mark's company. How do you put the artwork in there? Pretty simple. You go to artwork, you click on add artwork, then it gives you the ability to upload it. You upload it. And this is one that's super important here. I think that this is a secret metadata weapon. And I know that some people have been told, don't include your lyrics in your MP3s when you send them out. Give the music supervisor or ad agency or whoever it is a reason to call you. And I'm just like, absolutely not, because that's not going to help you. What's going to help you is the fact that you've just done all this really cool metadata over here, and that's really important and vital. But you also have the words of the song, and every single word in the song is a potential search term. So think about that. Now you've got everything that you've just done that is necessary and powerful, and you've added to it all the words in the song. So you've got all this new metadata here. So now, stuff that I didn't put in here. What if I was searching for the word kiss? Kiss is not something I would put in the comments section normally, but it's, as you can see in the lyrics, you can see every single one of these things in the lyrics becomes another search term that, will potentially give your song as a result based on what the person is searching for. That's why I feel that it's important to put the lyrics in from the side of the creator or the rights owner. Now, for the music supervisor, it's really important that the lyrics are there as well, because we can say, oh, is this explicit? Does it have themes that run counter to the feel of the song? Like I'm doing an ad, but the song is talking about depression. It's a non-starter, for us. Maybe we'll use the instrumental, I don't know, but, generally ads are going to be upbeat, and the lyrics need to be upbeat. Always put your lyrics in there. And the way that you do it is you go to the lyrics tab here, you click on that, then you click on custom lyrics, and then you cut and paste. Also, another thing is if the song is originally in a language other than English, put the original language version below and put the English language version up on top. It's important to put the original language version below no matter what. because what we may end up doing a lot of the time is that we may say, okay, this song sounds cool, but we're gonna have one of our people do a translation of it just to make sure that it goes in the right direction. Because in a English language translation may be done really well and contextually, or it may be done badly and be done with something like Google Translate, which isn't horrible, but doesn't get the context for a lot of things. Okay, so with that said, guess what? We are done. So those are all the fields of our metadata. We've entered it completely and correctly. You click OK, and now you can upload and share it on any platform, and you can be sure that your metadata is going to be correct. That is the biggest thing I want to leave you with, is that this method will allow you to have your metadata accurate, correct, and professional. And that's it. Now, let's see, what do we got here, Sharon? We got some other questions here to go through.
We have just a few.
Okay.
Elijah is asking, is it bad taste to make files of the same song with different metadata?
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. No. I would just have one set of metadata.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
What are the allowed pixel dimensions and file size for the artwork? Somebody did mention don't make it too large because it will make the MP3 itself large. Is there a recommendation on that?
Gosh, I do not have a recommendation for you on that. I agree, though, it shouldn't be large. I mean, generally.
Oh, we have somebody in the chat saying 400 by 400. So there you are.
I was going to say 500 by 500, but 400 by 400 is fine with me.
Small.
Yeah, exactly. And make sure that it's not high resolution. Make sure it's not like 300 DPI. Like bring it down to like a conservative digital DPI of under 100.
Great.
Yeah.
Would you include the title and or composer at the top or leave it out in this section?
Oh, in the lyrics section. Katrina, no, I would leave it out. I would leave it out. I don't think you need to repeat it because it's already been done. And then let's see here. Rabina has a question.
Yeah. After my song's lyrics, I also throw in all my keywords description in case they don't make it within the 254 character limit. I guess that's more of a what she does rather than
It's not what I would do. I mean, it's not what I would do. I've seen people do that.
What is proven to work. So
yeah, I mean, I've seen people do that, but I don't. I personally don't do it, but I've seen people do it. I'm not going to recommend it, but I've seen people do it.
Okay.
All right.
We also have, should we add our name into the lyrics?
You know what? I mean, I've seen people do it. They put like copyright in their name. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Cause any problems, no?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, good. This is an immense amount of information. I'm so relieved that we have this recorded. It's great when we get experts like Mark who can come here and share his just wealth of knowledge and experience and just impart this, because this makes a huge difference into the ability of people to succeed and flourish and hopefully succeed in a very, very competitive world. So it's great to be able to do this. So thank you, Mark. We just can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. But everybody, I really and truly hope that you got something out of this webinar today. And my sort of mission whenever I do something like this is to give it to you straight and to not, tell you that there is an easy way, or on the other hand, to act like it's alchemy, because I find that that's what happens a lot, is that you either have music supervisors who like act like their job and what entails their job is like, something from Harry Potter with a witch and a big spoon, like stirring and turning you know, swirls into diamonds or something. And that's like the one side of it. The other side of it is all these people going, hey, I just got 500 syncs and I'm going to get 500 more and you can get 500 too. So I try to be in the middle of those two areas. And I try to say to you, look, it's not simple, but it is a process. And these are the things within the process. And if you follow these areas, it will increase your chances of making the right connections and actually doing business in this industry. So if I've helped you to get a little bit more clarity and a little bit more understanding, then I am grateful that you've spent this time with us today. And I am grateful as always, Sharon, for our partnership and for everything that you do for everybody who's a member. And I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Oh, we're thrilled that you're part of it as well. And
Thank you.
So okay. Well, thank you. Until next time, have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Take care.